Hey, everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about Salesforce certifications. And with me today, it's a privilege to have Ben McCarthy from Salesforce. Ben, how's it going, Ben?
Yeah, really well. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me on the podcast.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. So, for those of you who don't know, uh, Ben McCarthy, better known as Salesforce Ben, at least in my world, uh, created this amazing blog years ago, and he's done an amazing job of serving the Salesforce community with salesforceben.com. Is there anything else people need to know about that you're up to? Because I know that my vision is sort of, I know you as Salesforce Ben. Is there anything else people need to know about? Like, what is Salesforce Ben all about? What community is being served through your platform?
Yeah, so our mission is to help Salesforce professionals advance their careers. So we've kind of been doing this. I was actually shocked the other day. We found out just found out it was founded 8 years ago. So we've been blogging for 8 years now. And it's got a bit serious in the last few years. We're putting out about 10 to 15 articles a week now, but our mission hasn't changed. We're still trying to help Salesforce professionals in any way we can. So that's what we're all about, really. You can check me out on salesforceben.com.
Yeah, that's excellent. Obviously, you've got my support. You guys do great work, and it's never any of the stuff where you're just like releasing clickbait to try to get views. It's clearly all beneficial content. So yeah, let's jump in. So for context, we're just wrapping up 2021. Mason Frank, this I think the biggest Salesforce recruiting company in the world, releases this annual survey, and you can find that in the show notes if you want more details. But basically, we're going to be reviewing some of the results that they got from their salary survey in 2021, and then talking about where we think certifications are headed in 2022. So to kick us off, one of the main things that stood out to me about the survey was that we at Talent Stacker work a lot with entry-level Salesforce talent, so people just trying to get that first job. And one of the things we've been hearing recently, we get a lot of emails or, maybe a comment on a post or something like that. But I've had a lot of people asking, why do I need to get a certification to get my first job? Like, shouldn't they train me once I get there? Why do I have to put in all this effort for somebody to give me an entry-level role? And one of the first stats that stood out to me was that based on the salary survey, or I should say the Salesforce survey, 76% of Salesforce job applicants have at least one certification. An additional 9% are currently working on their first certification. And then you have the remaining 15% who fall into that group of, I don't know why I need a certification. It's an entry-level job. Shouldn't you be teaching me what I need to know once I get there? So I would love to, I definitely have my opinions on pretty much everything, but yeah, what are your opinions on, the need for that first certification as far as it goes into just, showing employers that you're worth taking a look at?
Yeah, I think it is definitely very important, and I think it's very rare that I'll read a CV or come across an entry level or a Salesforce professional which is applying for their first job that doesn't have that admin cert. Just because, as you said, Bradley, it just proves to the employer that you have a base level of understanding. And of course, you probably could get away with getting a job without that, but I think you're going to be probably competing against others that will have a cert, and you're just going to have to jump through a lot more hoops to be able to prove to the employer that you do have that knowledge. And I thought that 15% was quite interesting, because I kind of think that 15% that doesn't have a certification are probably experienced, stubborn people that actually just don't want to get a cert because they let their experience do the talking. But I think for entry level admins, I think if you read any guides online, I know Talent Stacker kind of preach the same thing, and we do on the Salesforce Ben. Getting your first cert is important for that entry level job.
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on with my thinking too. And I do agree that 15% that are, sort of wondering why they need that first certification. I think it is a little bit of maybe an outdated mentality that says, it comes from this apprenticeship world where the company brings you on and you do these apprenticeships, you work under somebody and then you get trained up. But to me, the barrier to entry for that first certification is, it's free online training. You might have to shell out a couple $100s to take the exam. And so the barrier there isn't that high. Plus we're talking about making a 65 on a multiple choice test, they're not exactly asking you to be an expert. I think that the survey results sort of agree with us here. The business owners, employers, and Salesforce professionals feel that certifications provide a benchmark for your skills, and it showcases a dedication to the profession. So I think it's really interesting, if we're sort of rehashing that the employers feel Salesforce certifications represent a benchmark for your skill and a dedication to the profession. But what I find interesting about that is that I think a lot of times certifications are seen as your ability, like your ability to be a Salesforce expert, or showcasing your competency on a topic. And I think it does that a little bit, but based on what the survey said, it's a benchmark. I guess how do you view certifications and the difference between like what they represent? Do you look at a certification and say, well, this person, if they have a CPQ certification, then they must just be amazing on CPQ, and I can just put them on a project by themselves because they're certified? I mean, I think there's a difference there. So I'd love to get your take on that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, theoretical knowledge versus practical knowledge. And of course, we all know that it's very, very different applying some of these skills in practice. And there has been a debate for I think it's kind of calmed down now, but on social media, like a year, 2 years ago, this debate always comes up, which is better, certifications or experience. And I think the general consensus is that experience is better. If you've got 4 years working on Salesforce projects, you don't necessarily need a cert to be able to get your next job. That's not to say they're not important. I personally found that certs, it's been a while since I've taken one now, but I've got 6, but they kind of force you to learn about areas of the platform that you might not otherwise come across in your job. So it helps you be a better Salesforce professional. But, in terms of, certs versus experience is just hands down, gives you a lot more experience, I suppose. But I think both definitely complement each other.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Yeah. I mean, to me, Salesforce experience has got to be, that's sort of the mecca of what employers are looking for. It's the same thing. Like you could have 5, 6 certifications and no experience. And yeah, it's going to give you a leg up having additional certifications, but experience is going to trump any of that. So I would definitely agree there. And, we'll have another conversation around sort of pay expectations and salaries on another episode. And we'll talk some about, how these things can impact your pay expectations. But, I think the number one question I probably get about certifications is, which one do I need to get first? Because I think, when we started off in Salesforce, 10 plus years ago, I think there were maybe 5 or 6 certifications to choose from. And that was about it. And I think one of them was like the developer, I forget what it was called, but it was like basically the technical architect certification.
Okay.
Yeah, like it was like, you're never going to get this. Like you're going to have so much experience. You have to go sit for the board. And you've got your Dev 1 and Dev 2, whatever they were called at the time. And it was just like, to me, it was like, I can get admin, advanced admin, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud. And if I get those 5, then I've pretty much got every certification you can get for my job track.
Yeah.
And now
I remember looking at people who had 5 or 6, or I think 7 was maybe the most, and just going, oh my God, like you are the gods of Salesforce. And now there's 35 or something like that.
Yeah. I think that one better than I do, how many there are. But yeah, I know it's 30 plus, which is, it's amazing how, new certifications, it seems like, every quarter. I think getting into that, it's become much more difficult to just Google Salesforce certifications and understand like, which one do I even attempt to get first? And then you have people coming in that are like, I want to be an analyst, I want to be a developer, I want to be an admin. So does it matter? Like, which certification should they be going for first? And should it be different based on the job track they're looking for that first job?
Yeah, so we actually developed something on Salesforce Ben. I mean, if you go to Google and type in certification path or Salesforce certification pathways, we've developed kind of this like flow chart. Then you can quite clearly see the entry level ones and which ones need another certification, you know, a prerequisite. And I think it's quite clear. There's kind of, I would say one, you know, that there's only really one that I would recommend, and that's Salesforce Admin. And I think it's because it gives you a nice overview of the core platform, you know, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, a bit about marketing, and also a bit about the platform as well. So configuring automations and things like that. So I think that's the logical one. But I would say if people want to get to, you know, just to bolster up their CV, then Platform App Builder is definitely one to go to as well. Just because I would say there is so much overlap with admin. I mean, I don't know if it's still the case, but when I took it, it was probably 50% of the exam was stuff I covered in admin. But also it proves to employers that you're very handy when it comes to, you know, configuring Salesforce implementations, which is, you know, a lot about what admins do or consultants do. So yeah, definitely those two, no question about it.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I mean, I feel like we scripted this before we started. It's like, we're just going to agree on everything is the way this is happening. Yeah, because I think that's spot on. It's, you know, the Salesforce administrator, even if you talk to seasoned developers, they'll say, if you're an aspiring Salesforce developer, start with admin certification. You need that foundational understanding of the platform before you should ever be writing, you know, custom code to solve a problem. Like, you should know what's available on the point and click or declarative side before you ever even think about, you know, writing Apex to solve a problem. So yeah, I think that's spot on. You know, admin first. To your point, that's exactly the advice I give. If you're going for number two, if you feel like, you know, a lot of people, they get done with certification number one and it just feels so natural to keep studying and staying in that rhythm. And so they go certification number two. And you're right, Platform App Builder. And if you look at the trails, and if you're not familiar, on like Trailhead, the Salesforce's free training platform, if you finish the admin prep, I think the trail is called like preparing for your admin certification. If you finish that one, and then you go start on the preparing for your Platform App Builder certification, you're already 50% done with the content because it's the same content. And now I think what we're seeing emerge, and you can let me know if you have any insight on this, but I believe it's called the UX designer certification. It's a similar thing that once you've finished admin and then Platform App Builder, if you go look at UX designer, there's a very similar overlap right now where I think you're more than 50% done if you've done those other two certifications.
Yeah, so two of my colleagues actually at Salesforce Ben did the UX designer, and they said it was quite strange because exactly like you said, it includes a lot of Platform App Builder knowledge, which they weren't really expecting. But then, of course, there is some, you know, more classic UX designer, more let's say softer skills included in there. But yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at that personally, but I think that's, you know, an important. I think they're very glad they did the certification just because it is so important. You know, you can, with Lightning, you can literally customize Salesforce to look like anything you like, and, you know, ensuring it's a good user experience is going to be up there with priorities.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, you know, and I think the UX designer is probably going to come. It's a newer certification, so it's probably going to have more content when if you're listening to this closer to the end of 2022. This could have shifted some, and it may be a little more bulked up with sort of the design elements. But yeah, right now, I mean, as far as if you're one of those people who just wants to be, you know, 2-3x certified because it just gives you more confidence coming into your first job, or even if you're a, you know, seasoned professional who just wants to add another certification, you might be surprised at how easily you can go, you know, do a weekend of prep work, maybe a week or two of prep work, and go take that exam and put another one on the belt.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So I think sort of going back to what we talked about before, like, what if you don't have a certification and you're looking for that first role, or you're looking to differentiate yourself? And I think some people come back to Trailhead, like, well, maybe I'll list my super badges, or I'll say I'm a Trailhead Ranger. And a Trailhead Ranger being someone with 100 or more badges. I forget there's a point threshold too, but the main thing is 100 badges. And so, part of the survey covered your marketability with Trailhead alone. Basically, you haven't done enough to get certified, but you've got a lot of Trailhead training. And the response is that over 70% of the survey participants feel that Trailhead alone doesn't have an impact on your success, or they're unsure if it has any impact as far as landing that first role. So I guess number one, I wonder if do you sort of feel similarly about no certifications, just Trailhead training? And then maybe we could talk for a moment about, well, if you don't have a certification, but you're dead set, like I gotta start applying for jobs and find a new role. What can you do to try to differentiate yourself from that candidate pool?
Yeah, I do tend to agree with that. It's been a while since I've hired kind of technical Salesforce individuals, but I guess if someone came to me with a CV and said, I've got 200 badges, I would kind of be asked, well, I mean, to be a bit blunt, you could basically know nothing about Salesforce and still get badges, answer the questions right. I mean, you can, configure it, but you're kind of following a tutorial. So you could know very little and just skipping through loads of badges very, very quickly to up your badge count. But then I'd kind of be asking the question, if you have, let's say 100, 200 badges, why didn't you put the effort into, passing the admin exam, which is kind of hard, cold evidence that you know your stuff. Super badges, I think possibly, I personally haven't done a super badge, but as far as I understand it, it requires a lot more hands-on experience, and you're not going to pass it just by fluking through. So I think again that can help bulk up your CV. But again, why wouldn't you do that exam? Do the certification exam if kind of that's the way. I mean, do you see it in a similar way?
Yeah. It's tough. There's some people, I do agree. Trailhead alone, I mean, if you don't have a certification, I guess, put your super badges on your LinkedIn, put your super badges on your CV, your resume. I mean, because that's the best you have as far as differentiating yourself from a Salesforce training perspective. But I would think that alone is not going to, I would think it's going to be hard to even get an interview, much less get an offer if you're, if you have no certifications. It just goes back to the way we started this conversation with, who's your competition? 76% of Salesforce job applicants have a certification. You're already in the bottom 24% just by the sheer fact that you don't have one. So yeah, I would focus my energy on getting that cert because I think it would bring you down. Now, I think we can segue into, well, what else can I do? Like, maybe I'm a bad test taker. Maybe I don't have $200 right now. Whatever it is, to go take the certification exam. How can I differentiate myself? Because we see people land jobs without certifications. It's rare, but we see it, and there are reasons why we see it. To your point from before, it could be that they have Salesforce experience. Maybe they've done a volunteer project. Maybe they've just happened to work at a company that uses Salesforce and they got pulled in to do some Salesforce things. So they've got a little experience. I think too, it could just be the company they work for. They might work in sales or support or marketing, and their company uses Salesforce. So they've just got some end user exposure that might give them a leg up. Other than that, maybe if you've got some real background experience in whatever that company does, like we've seen individuals land jobs at, companies that just align with their background. Like we had one lady who came from car manufacturing, and then she landed a job without a certification in a company that worked in the oil and gas industry. And they just liked her knowledge of their industry enough to say, okay, we'll take a shot. We'll get you trained up and certified. But to your point from before, the mountain you're attempting to climb is much higher without that certification.
And I think that's a really important point. Industry experience is so valuable, especially at consultancies. Like in the UK, with London being the financial capital, there are so many fintech companies around. And if you have FinServ experience and Salesforce, you'll be you can get a job very, very easily. So yeah, I think that's another important point to highlight. I think something also to point out. You mentioned if you maybe don't have $200 lying around for a Salesforce admin cert, there are a lot of free ISV certifications you can take, and these are pretty niche. You've got Copado, which is DevOps. You've got things like FormStack. I think they've got a document generation certification. But these things just help your CV, and they're probably not going to land you a job alone, but they're free. You can learn something, and if you're applying to a company that uses Copado or FormStack, then might help your chances.
I think that's a really good point that I don't think many people talk about, is that there are what I would sort of consider Salesforce adjacent certifications that you can get. And if they're free, then that can give you that breakthrough. And chances are they're not, as difficult. You can probably retake without all that pressure of, any financial pressure. And if you look back at it and you say, well, employers view the certification as a benchmark and your dedication, well, at least you can show dedication with some of those certifications. And heck, when you layer on your Salesforce admin cert, you're going to look better than everybody else with an admin cert, because now you've got, a couple of adjacent certifications and a Salesforce certification. You're going to look that much better. So I think that's a really valid point. So I think that really wraps up, the topics for Salesforce certifications coming out of 2021. We saw admin, platform, app builder, developer one were really the top 3 certifications. And we sort of found out that you're going to need a certification to give yourself the smoothest path into your first Salesforce job. And I think coming into 2022, we sort of agreed that you're going to be looking at probably the administrator, platform, app builder, and UX designer certification becoming more popular. And I could even see that becoming more popular than the Dev 1 certification. And not because developers aren't absolutely in high demand, but just because it's a little bit harder to get the Dev certification than it would be to, toss in that UX designer cert. So I think we've got, a lot of fun for 2022 from a certification standpoint. And looking forward to seeing what happens.